Alright folks, today I bring to you the Marantz sr7010, a full hands-on review of the flagship receiver and future-proofed receiver from Marantz, the sr7011's most comparable predecessor. We'll be doing a full review on that as well as soon as that arrives. Let's get into our review, folks. I'm going to start off by telling you that this is one of the most capable receivers, surround sound processors, or stereos that I have ever used in my entire life. The reason being is because I am obsessed with this receiver's capabilities, functions, and control opportunities. If we were to list the specifications, I do know them like the back of my hand, similar to my car's specifications as to horsepower, torque, foot-pounds, and other equipment I use on a daily basis. I'm going to start off by saying that it is one of the most efficient receivers I have ever used, with so many different options and functions and features that it would take us probably an entire day of doing a video to run through every function of this receiver. I'm going to try and sum it up as best as I can, as I find it difficult for some professionals to do a full hands-on review of something that they've had in their possession for maybe even a couple of hours, a week, even a month. So I'll tell you that I've had this receiver in my possession for about at least 6 months. I have used him every day with not one problem whatsoever. I've had a few discrepancies with it, but I've gone ahead and fixed them, figured it out, and determined what needs to be done or what needs to be performed. Okay, I'm going to start off by listing you the specifications of them. I'll go ahead and show you the back of them as well, too. One thing I wanted to do was show you that it is one of the most easy receivers to set up in history. That is why I have it in Setup Assistant and to begin setup mode here. I'm not going to actually perform a setup mode here because, well, it's already set up for me. I'm going to quickly show you the setup that I have configured in my, configured in my living room, so to speak, which is more or less a traditional 7.2 surround sound setup. I have not currently utilized any height channels. I am utilizing wide or width channels. However, I have yet to install any in-ceiling speakers, so to speak, now. That is why I'll be using mostly my SVS speakers. I have some prime towers, prime centers, some prime satellites here as well, and I also have some other brands of speakers in the back there for surround backs. I've got a Klipsch reference RF24 tower right there. And then I have two NHT1 bookshelf speakers sitting on some speaker stands over there, being utilized as my speakers B. Alright, let me get into the review here and show you that this receiver does operate an assistant setup. One of the most interesting features of this is that, like I said, it is very, very, very easy to set up. I'm going to go ahead and show you the remote, as I think you're quite familiar with. The remote is nothing but easy, seamless, and integrated into the amplifier like none other. A little bit different than our Pioneer remotes, a little bit different than our Denon and our Onkyo remotes. However, I have to compare this receiver simply to the most powerful Denon receivers, as the Pioneers are quite different and more or less meant for something specific like music. This receiver is probably the best possible choice for audio, video, and anything in between. It has every different function and feature you could possibly want in it, including a 9-channel onboard amplifier with 11.2 channels of processing. I have chosen to use an external power amplifier by Emotiva, being the BassX A300 power amplifier. So we'll go ahead and give that a listen. But I wanted you to hear the receiver in its full capability while utilizing every possible speaker enveloping you in a full immersive surround sound experience, which we will conduct on a Blu-ray of my choice. Alright folks, I'm going to get into the review here a little bit. As I have my camera mode in nostalgic, I'll go ahead and turn that off for you. Let me just start by explaining the fact that the assistant setup is just one custom calibrated way of doing this. However, I will not be performing that feature or function. Yes, I will be switching on my Epson 3020 projector soon, but I wanted to just go into the general on-screen display or graphical user interface of this receiver to show you its capabilities just slightly. It has an eco mode, which is more precise than any receiver I have ever seen in my entire life. As you can see here, it has a power on default of last input and volume mode of last, and on-screen display of auto. We can run through those of different forms here, but it's got things that would take us, like I said, days to run through every possible situation. Of course, it is capable of doing 3 separate and full high-definition zones. It is capable of setting up those zones and actually changing ramifications of those zones, including name and every form of audio and video selections you could possibly imagine. It also has firmware upgrades, and one of the most interesting features or functions about it is something as usage data. Helps us to improve our products and customer service. What it actually does is it sends the usage data to Marantz to kind of tell them how you're using the receiver, how long you've been using it, what methods, what sound modes, and what they should improve over time. That is interesting, very interesting, guys. But one of the more interesting features and functions I find, having it compared to other surround sound receivers, more or less specifically Pioneer, Denon, and Onkyo receivers, is information. So there's information about receiver settings, input signals, and etc. Let me just get into this for 1 second, as this is quite interesting, guys. You are able to, well, more or less, when watching a certain source, just press info button. But if you want to see a full-on description of what you're watching and everything about it, you can actually do this. It'll show you what resolution you're able to get, color space, and pixel depth, as we are not in a particular input right now. But since I have this connected to 2 different monitors, it is capable of sending out an HDMI signal, of course, 2 different monitors, and you're actually able to see what those monitors are capable of. So we don't even have to use the audio return channel, which it only has 1, of course. Every receiver only has 1 audio return channel, as this has 3 actual HDMI outputs. The HDMI monitor 2 would be talking about my Epson 3020 projector over there. Okay, guys, let's get into the other functions and features of this receiver here. I'm just going to run through some of the general information aspects we've got here concerning zones, as this is quite interesting compared to other receivers, guys. I'd have to list some things like, well, certain video processing aspects and functions of this receiver compared to things like my Pioneer and Denon receivers in other rooms. You can actually lock this receiver from changing certain setup aspects of it from other people. You know, say you've got a young teenager in the house that likes to change your bass settings and your low frequency effects and all that for hip-hop music. Well, you can lock that up. So, one of the most interesting aspects of it is, in my opinion, it's video processing, guys. This receiver does some insane things with video processing. As I said before, this receiver will upconvert everything literally to 4K. Everything, literally. You can output an analog signal via an RCA, and it'll upscale it, or a digital signal to 4K. It'll go progressive. It'll also change your aspect ratio based on what television you have. An IP scaler, we will choose HDMI. Progressive mode. Video and film, auto, video. We're going to keep that at auto, guys. And we can select our resolution even. Guys, unfortunately, I have never seen the actual Pioneer receivers do any of this before. So in my experience, this is the only receiver that actually is capable of upscaling and upconverting everything to a full 4K video signal. As opposed to, say, the, well, Pioneer down the basement that I have, the SC97 and SC99, they do not do anything like this. Okay, guys, I'm going to run through just some different functions and features here. I'm going to show you kind of TV audio switching. Now we're going to turn that on really quick, as that's concerning the audio return channel function of this. Power off controls in video, power saving, smart menu, and it's got economy mode, which I've never seen on the receivers either. So, Let's just talk about the specifications real quick as we're getting into the graphical user interface on screen display here. As I rant on, I'm going to let you just see kind of the different options you're able to do with this receiver. But specifications. Specifications, guys, I know like the back of my hand. Similar to my car, similar to my house, similar to other things. Most people should be aware of their car's horsepower, specifications, torque, foot-pounds, what do you have and stuff, whatnot. But you are able to do so many different functions and features with this receiver, guys, that I'm just obsessed with its capabilities and what it can do. Okay, MDAX is actually for digital audio frequencies like, say, Spotify or MP3 player inputs. It has the Odyssey room calibration, but more or less it is one of the Marantz receivers capable of doing the the Oro 3D sound upgrade, which in my opinion is worth it. You are able to do so many different things with this receiver, guys. Let me quickly talk about specifications and then show you what an actual Blu-ray looks like being played right through a PlayStation 4. And please check back for reference as to operating a cable signal right out of an HDMI cable, up-converted and up-sampled to 4K, guys. Alright, specification-wise, this receiver on the front of it will tell you that it's got 235 watts, and it's got a 9-channel onboard amplifier with 11.2-channel processing. I have chosen to, of course, and I'm sorry about the light, guys, as I'll pop on a flashlight, but we're waiting for it till it gets a little bit darker out here to use my Epson to show you more of the on-screen display graphical user interface and the comparison between the two displays. I am choosing to use an external power amplifier, of course in this case an Emotiva, a BassX A300 stereo amplifier. As I explained before, it's got 11.2-channel processing. Using a power amplifier with more than 2 channels would be worthless in this situation. However, I would recommend using a digital amplifier for some digital sources. However, in this case, our Emotiva amplifier is probably my favorite in terms of powering my SVS Prime Tower speakers here. As you can see here, they are my favorite speakers of choice, and I've got quite an interesting array of speakers set up here. So I'll go ahead and let you hear how that sounds, but first I wanted to just quickly run through the specifications of it. We're looking at a 235 watt spec, which is going to be listed at 4 ohm. It can drive very, very, very difficult, low impedance, low resistance, very expensive speakers. But in 8 ohms, in a more traditional manner, we are talking about a 125 watt by 9 with all channels driven, root mean squared receiver here. That is a pretty powerful surround sound receiver processor, as it is Marantz's top-of-the-line flagship surround sound receiver / video processor, not being one of their reference series, costing more than $3,000. This Marantz sr7010 cost me about $1,500. I believe MSRP'd at maybe $2,000. Very similar to the sr7011. As I stated before, I will have the 7011 at some point standing next to this guy and do a full-on comparison review of that as well. However, it's almost identical to the 7011, so we don't need to do that right now. Let me just quickly show you the back of this receiver, guys, as it's one of my favorite aspects of it, and it reminds me of jewelry. Simply because of its gold plating and the amount of different inputs and outputs it does boast, this is one receiver not to mess with. As you can tell, just quickly looking at the right side of it, it has 2 monitor outputs, hence the reason I have a 4K television here and a 4K enhanced projector over there. I've been using my Epson 3020, but I prefer my 5040UB, more or less. Okay, folks, I've got 2 AudioQuest HDMI cables running out of the monitor outputs on here, but keep in mind that all HDMI outputs on this receiver are capable of operating HDCP 2.2 with a 4K upscale pass-through, up-conversion. That means any source you pass through this receiver in a digital digital video form, will be up-converted to, yes, full 4K. Okay, let's get into other aspects of the back of this here. I've chosen to take out my AudioQuest and Pangea AC power cables and providing the exact factory power cable here. I have also decided to not use my surround back ports or speaker binding posts because I have set my amp up, or assigned my amp, so to speak, in a specific configuration utilizing a set of speakers B. Once we have a source content playing here in the second half of the video, which we will, I will compare the speakers for you as well. But for this video, guys, I just want to show you the back of this receiver fully, as it is quite interesting with all the different inputs and videos it's got. We are all too familiar with several surround sound receivers and what inputs and outputs they are boasting on the back of them. It is quite unique in this receiver's sense of, well, we are moving out or phasing out, so to speak, analog video cables. So, known as composite cables and component cables, there is no need with this receiver to use those anymore, as our components are not requiring use of those. However, we are choosing to use the pre-out section of our Marantz sr7010 in the front aspects. As I said before, I have chosen to use an external power amplifier here. So, for my review purpose, we will be using the Emotiva BassX A300 power amplifier with an analog gold-plated RCA connection and an AudioQuest set of Type 4 speaker wires going to my SVS Prime Tower speakers. I'm going to go ahead and pop him on for a second, guys, as I have to turn my surge protector power conditioner on. Boom. And we're going to wait for him to start up and go to the next video.